This is objectively the strongest spiritborn build made yet during the Vessel of Hatred early access, and the godly Ace of Spades over at Goblin Inc. together with Sanctum cooked up the build, spending countless of hours maxing it out. The guy cooked so fucking hard, in fact, that all of his hair fell off. So go show him some love, will you? And in this video, we'll cover their amazing build. So let's get started, shall we? For starters, it's a touch of death build. But not just a standard touch of death build, because the interactions behind this is just disgusting. There are 3 factors that we use to maximize the damage here. First, the latter part of Touch of Death. We don't really give a shit about the poisoning damage, rather we want the swarms. Now the damage here may not look much to the world, but when you combine it with the insatiable aspect, you get 24 sec with 14% per hit and 300% extra from the aspect on top of that. Like what the actual hell is going on with this class? Anyhow, if that wasn't enough, we slap on the rod of Kepaliki Aswell, because with this, we can make the explosions explode even harder by also critting every goddamn time. Now the downside is that by rocking the big dick setup, you will need to press Touch of Death a few times before it explodes. But in the speedrun variant, you'll just slap on the noxious resonance key passive, and you'll get them each goddamn time. So whatever you want to do, Ace has got you covered, my man or woman. You also need to be aware that this is an endgame build, meaning you do want at least 2 uniques for it to work. Fortunately for you, though, they're easy as hell to obtain, and you don't need any Ubers. So take a day off from work, get grinding, and you'll be able to play it in no time. Okay, and what about the other skills then? We have additional buttons to press, right? Hey, you're right. You must be pretty clever for noticing. First off is Soar. This is the spell that dropped a massive fart in the beginning of the video, and that's what we're using it for. Mainly at least, because it also grants us vulnerable. We then have the Hunter. This is the massive jaguar jumping out of our bumhole every now and then. So what does this help us with? Mainly with a shit ton of damage. It instantly grants us 4 stacks of ferocity, which is a resource for attack speed. And it also grants us a massive damage bonus. Oh, and it looks pretty badass too. Another lovely skill that could be on your bars if you need defensives is counterattack. The thing is, though, that we don't actually need to have it on our bars if we don't want to, but if we do, we gain a shit ton of defensive power, so we're going with that. Not like we're going to lack the damage anyways, Elmao. Next skill on the bar is Ravager. This grants a permanent dash, but it has one additional extremely important benefit. It will grant us vigor back. A buttload of it. Because, as you may have seen, the rod we are using will spend all of our vigor, and so we need to gain it back. With enough vigor generation, we can press our Touch of Death one time, get full vigor, and just keep blasting. It's quite beautiful. So, Mr. Paragaming Big Dick Senpai, how do we obtain enough vigor generation to game? Well, shit, via the skill tree, the Midnight Sun Ring, and the Paragons. So all you need to do is to grab 1 or 2 resource generation rolls on your jewelry, and you'll have that sorted with ease. And for our final skill, we have Armored Hide. This is used for a buttload of defensives, and we are also gaining a lot of damage from block chance. I'll show how soon. Alright friends, that's a bit of the basics. Considering it's a completely new class, it may be difficult to keep track of everything, So let's walk our way through the planner slowly. Don't worry, I'll hold your hand while we do it, you demented old fuck. Starting us off, here are the skills again. For Spirit Hall, you want to pull out your dick for Harambe, because the barriers you'll gain are humongous. For Second Spirit, we grab the Jaguar for the additional ferocity aka attack speed bonuses. We then go for the gear and aspects. The harmony of Ebawaka is just bonkers. For starters, it grants us 90% extra damage when we have 3 different spirits. This is because Touch of Death is a centipede. We then turn it into a Harambe skill via the first spirit choice. And finally, the helmet turns all the skills into Jaguar skills. So 3 different spirits at once. Next, we go for the Juggernaut Titty Protector. We're doing this as well as grabbing armor everywhere. And why is that? Well, damn son, due to the unyielding hits aspect that turns it all into big damn. For the gloves, this is the aspect I talked about that turned our block chance into crit damage, which is sweet as hell. As pantaloonies, we go for yet another armor aspect due to what I just said. You remember what, right? Fucking boomers, man. Either way, you'll also see that we have basic skill ranks on the pantaloonies and core skill ranks on our gloves. But if you hover Touch of Death, it's a potency skill. Now you must be confused as to shit, but don't worry. In the skill tree, we turn it into a core skills, and a basic skill via the Rod of Kepaleka. Lots of interactions to keep track of, but that sure makes for some cool builds. Next, we want a slick pair of sneakers. Rakanoth's Wake is godly, as it instantly caps out our all resistance. And finally, Rod of Kepaleke. This turns our core skills into basic skills, and also spends all of our vigor to blow enemies up. After that, we have our jewelry, and I'm not talking about those family jewels of yours, I'm talking about our amulet and rings. This is where we slap on the insatiable aspect which is just broken. 300% damage? Yeah, sure, I'll take that. You'll also want some resource generation on your jewelry, so you gain it all back after you press your Touch of Death via the Midnight Sun Ring. And that, my friends, are the gear and aspects. For the runes, we go for Bulwark for the godly defensives and trigger it by spending resources, and we also pick up our own Vortex to save a skill slot, along with triggering it via this rune right here. Alright, nicely done. Let me just check something. Yeah, damn right, it's already skill tree a fucking clock, and you know it, baby. Start by dropping a wet fart on the basic skills, because those suck ass. Instead, grab some passives here and head for Soar. Both a lovely mobility skill and source of vulnerable. We then pick up some additional passives and Ravager for instant dash and vigor generation. Next we go for big damage reduction via Perseverance and Armored Hide. And in case you don't know what Resolve is, it's simply damage reduction. So we have Vigor, which is our main essence, Resolve, which is damage reduction, and Ferocity, which is attack speed. Counterattack has a massive active granting 100% dodge and also grants us big damage. Resilient grants max life, and our Centipede passives some damage. The Jaguar passives are just broken though, 30% damage here and a buttload of damage from Furnace. Potent is the most important though, and is one of the highest scaling passives in the game. So whip out your credit card and swipe an amulet with it on. And of course we can't forget Touch of Death, our main damage-dealing skill. Poise Touch of Death is also what turns it into a core skill. Finally, the ultimates. The Hunter is just broken for damage and maxed out our ferocity each time we use it. We also gain a buttload of passives here as we use our ultimate. And if you want to go for the memes, then you whip out your dick for Harambe and go for that instead. And of course our key passive. Now this is important. For all hard content, you go for Prodigy's Tempo. This is to reset your cooldowns and spam them permanently. For For speed farming, though, you go for Noxious Resonance. This is due to Touch of Death having 3 stacks before it blows up. With this passive, though, you can blow shit up with every cast, but it's useless for damage in this build, so go for Prodigy if you want to do any sort of pushing. Well, shit. Skill tree complete. How about dropping a fucking sub, will ya? 1 for me and 1 for Ace over at Goblin Inc. Or else we're coming over to drop kick you in the balls. Nicely done. I knew I could count on you. Let's check out the Perragons now, shall we? Here we start off with the Colossal Glyph for Big Dam, followed by heading over to the Viscous Shield legendary node. What's lovely about this class is that there are so many stats that just does something completely different somewhere, and this is an example of that. Turning Barrier into damage. We then grab Canny and buzz off to grab Revealing for damage and Fester for... Yep, even more damage. After that, it's time for Sapping. This both generates damage and vigor, which will be our final way of solving that vigor generation I talked about. We also have some additional resource here, which directly correlates to damage via the rod. And finally, Revenge. It boosts both damage and grants a massive buff to the nearby max resource node. Finally, we head on over all the way Convergence and socket Spirit real hecking good for the damage bonus. Well damn, Paragon's complete. Let's check out the Mercenaries, shall we, before we start gaming. Here you are, basically free to pick whatever the hell you want, and what you pick depends on what you're playing. So hot tip, experiment a little, as your wife usually says before she pegs you in the ass. Anyhow, here we go for Raher, for the damage reduction, immunity, and damage bonus via Bastion. We then have Variana as reinforcement, which boosts us via Bloodthirst, for the additional attack speed bonus. Just lovely. And now, my friends, it's time to get hecking good. While there are a lot of interactions making the build work and keep track of, the playstyle is extremely simple. You basically have Soar for your mobility. You also need to use this on bosses, though, as it grants Vulnerable for 4 seconds. So keep that in mind. Other than that, though, all the other skills on your bars apart from Touch of Death is simply there to buff you. So you keep spamming them while they're off cooldown. And when they are on cooldown, you just spam Touch of Death. Keep doing this, and you can clear anything in the game. It's just that simple. And that, my friends, is all for this one. See you in the next one.